Okay, we'll call a meeting to order of the Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency, regular meeting of January 10th, 2006. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow our heads. Help us find the courage, wisdom, and common sense to make the right decisions for the people of Newman. Also, we were all saddened this past week with the passing of former Mayor Janet Carlson. At this time, let's have a few moments of silent prayer in her honor. Thank you. Amen. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Parker?
Present.
Marquez?
Present.
Martinez?
Present.
Francois?
Present.
Mayor Panacea?
Present. Declaration of conflicts of interest on this evening. Ceremonial matters on this evening. Item 7, items from the public, non-agenda items. If anybody has anything that is not on the posted agenda, now would be the time.
I do.
Okay. Hi, Ed.
How's it going?
Good.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ed Caton, as most of you know. I live at 658 Lee Avenue. I've lived in Newman for more than 26 years, where my wife and Deanne have raised our 2 children. As you know, I retired from Newman Police Department on December 31st after 26 years, 4 months, 11 days. Haven't calculated the hours yet. But who's counting? Actually, over the past 26 years, I've worked my way through the ranks of the police department, starting as patrol officer, promoted to corporal, promoted to sergeant, and eventually to administrative sergeant, and then in 1998, I promoted to lieutenant, a position I held when I retired. Actually, I even served as acting police chief on 2 occasions. I try to remain loyal to the 4 police chiefs that I worked under, as well as the 7 city managers that I worked under, countless council members. And during the last 15 years, I felt that I basically have ran the day-to-day operations of the police department. Basically in charge of ordering equipment, as well as cars, outfitting those cars, vehicle maintenance, as well as hiring police officers and being part of the discipline process when necessary. On December 13th, you as a council considered a request by myself to continue health care after retirement. Although I remained hopeful that it might happen, I anticipated your decision. Over the years, I accumulated countless hours of sick leave to the point where the city has a cap of 1,490 hours, whatever it is. I had well over 1,800 hours that I had accumulated. That's just kind of a basic number for you to look at to recognize the fact that I didn't abuse or use my sick leave. I was at work most of the time when I was sick. I'd hoped that there'd be some kind of consideration of compensation, but that didn't happen as well. As a result of the council's decision on the 13th, I decided to start using some of my sick leave time on December 15th. So I made a lot of doctor's appointments, utilized my health insurance while I still had it, because it was going to expire at the term of my retirement. I do have to admit, I had golf fever one day during that time. The weather was nice, so I went and played golf. I wasn't feeling very well. Golf made me feel a lot better. That happened in the last 2 weeks of my employment. But nevertheless, I always stopped in office every morning at my normal time at 6:30, did my normal paperwork, see if there's anything that was pending. Then I left before the office staff got there. And I usually routinely checked in the afternoon with the office staff, as they always knew where I was. I had basically cleared my office about 2 weeks prior to leaving. And I'd boxed up all of my equipment, boxed up all the city's equipment, and put it on my desk, as removed all my personal items from my office as well. And as I would find any city-owned equipment, I would also put that in the box on my desk. I'd given Chief Brady and Kathy, our office manager, all my passwords for my computer, all my ID access, and I sent that to him via the email. On Thursday, December 29th, I went to City Hall, actually talked to the city manager, but he wasn't in, so I spoke with Judy Silver. Talked basically about my pending retirement, my final paycheck, how I wanted it deposited, etc. And Judy told me that my final check had been deposited as I requested, and that she had my final vacation check. And I asked Judy if I could have my last check, and as she had this blank stare on her face, I could tell that something was bothering her, so I asked her what the issue was. And she told me that Chief had told her to hold on to my last check, because I hadn't turned in my equipment yet. To say I was stunned was an understatement. Then as I began to analyze what had just been told to me, then I got angry, thinking, why would anybody want to hold up my last check? Because I hadn't turned in my equipment yet. Not to mention that's an illegal act. You might want to consult with your attorney to let you know that, as I've consulted with mine as well as union rep. You cannot hold the final paycheck in lieu of equipment. There's only been one other time that I felt disrespected by the city of Newman, and that was in May of 1992, where the then Chief of Police, Larry Bassar, was the only one who actually stood behind me. So the next day, December 30th, which was actually my last day in the office, I waited for Chief Brady to arrive, and I confronted him with this issue. He arrived at work about 9 o'clock, and I asked him what was the purpose of it. His response was, "This is what we do all the time." That, I can assure you, is not the truth. I'm the one who issues equipment. I was one who also took equipment back from officers who left our employment. I'm the one who developed the checklist. So I know that wasn't a common practice. I also knew it was an illegal practice. So I reminded Chief that I knew that this was not department policy, and that's not what we routinely did, is holding paychecks while we're waiting for final equipment to be turned in. An example of that, as I reminded him, was the officer Chuck Hill left our employment the week before. That practice wasn't used for him. I had collected most of his equipment, which is, I assume, still in my ex-office. So the chief had reminded me that I hadn't been around, and I reminded him I'd been off on sick leave. So just, if you're not familiar with it, and you may well know that holding an employee's final paycheck in lieu of equipment being turned in is illegal. And you might check with Mr. Helen, and I'm sure he can advise you on that. I think what's more upsetting, more than anything else, is the fact that my honesty and integrity was questioned. And after 26 years of employment for the city of Newman, I felt slighted, I felt basically hurt. So what should have been a happy day for me, my last day in Newman, basically I couldn't wait to get the hell out of here. I was that angry. If it wouldn't have been for my office staff and officers who came in to see me off my last day, I wouldn't have showed up then either. I'm not sure what she was thinking. Maybe I was going to steal my car, steal my gun, steal my cell phone. I don't know. Had he looked on my desk, he would have seen that everything was packaged up in a box and properly placed on my desk. The only thing I had left was my cell phone, my keys, and my car, and my gun. Not to, just kind of remind, I was an employee of the city of Newman until December 31st at midnight. I could have waited then to turn my equipment in, but I chose not to do that. I felt I'd been betrayed. I took it personal. And I want you to know it's not a common practice of the police department to withhold final payroll checks. I know that for a fact, because I'm the one who normally receives final equipment. There's other issues that I won't get into, but you all know where I live. If any one of you would like to talk to me personally, collectively, singly, I'd be more than willing to sit down and talk with you about it. And in closing, I would think after 26 years of being an employee of the City of Newman and the Police Department, where I think I've served honorably, I think my personnel jacket is clear. I don't have one sustained citizen complaint. I think I would have earned, and I think I would deserve a little bit more respect, and would have been treated with a little bit more respect. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Is there any other non-agenda items? Seeing none. Agenda items, when the item comes before us, if you'd like to comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and try to keep your comments to under 3 minutes. Item 8, public hearings. We have none this evening. Item 9, consent calendar. Item 8, approval of warrants. Item B, approval of minutes of the December 13th, 2005 regular meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move for approval.
Actually, I just have to pull 029679 Precision Inspection.
And I also want to pull a warrant for a question. The one on Century Chevrolet, 29710, the purchase for the 205 Chevy pickup trucks.
You want to pull it, Tim, or you want to a clarification?
Maybe I can
on
get
it?
it. Maybe I can get a clarification. The purchase order for those trucks, did they go out to bid?
Ernie, if you'll step in and help me out here, was this one of the new compressed natural gas vehicles?
CNG vehicles? Both of them?
There were actually 3 pickups that were ordered. They were ordered, I believe, in April or May. The reason that there was a big delay is because they had to equip them with the natural gas cylinders.
Okay, so these are ones that already had come before.
Yes, and we went through the state procurement office, and the state procurement office only has Century out of Woodland, so
Okay.
there's no other provider.
Okay.
So that's
yeah,
why
I
we
just
went there.
wanted, knowing that they're the CNG, then I would
Right.
call that as an agenda item.
That's correct.
Thank you, Ernie.
Mhm.
I believe that was when we had some money through Stancock and we tagged on, I
Yeah.
believe, Houston and which other city was it? Houston?
Oakdale.
Oakdale.
Yeah,
We
it just
tagged
kind
on
of
to
stood
them.
out because I didn't understand it as those CNG trucks,
Right.
which makes it perfectly fine. I move for approval with the one warrant that was pulled by Mr. Marquez.
Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And for warrant 029679,
So move.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4 with 1 abstaining or not participating. Item 10 under regular business, approve amendment to contract with city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the proposal by our city attorney that the contract for his compensation be amended. The compensation clause covers the hourly rate, which hasn't increased during the term of his contract, and he's requesting in place of it a retainer of $1,750 an hour, which is equivalent to 16 hour. I'm sorry, an hour. Would that be the per month? I'm sorry, $1,750 per month, which is equivalent to 16 hours of work, and then his normal rate for the remainder of his time spent. We look back over the past 4 years, and he averages over 16 hours a month, so that there's little chance that we would be paying him a retainer for services not rendered. And the hourly rate is the same, so that I think there's little risk in doing this, and staff recommends that you approve this request.
I'm sure there are attorneys that make that much an hour, huh?
Yeah, there are. They're out there, I'm sure. Basically what I'm doing, I think some of you know, I'm downsizing the office. My dad's basically fully retired, and this simplifies my bookkeeping. It's about where we're at anyway, so that's basically the reason for the request.
Any questions? If not, can we have some direction?
I move we approve the amendment to the contract with city attorney as stated in the staff report.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item B, approve a proposal to provide audit services from Clendon, Bird and Company LLP and authorize the mayor and city attorney to sign an agreement for audit services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The current audit firm has been with us for over 10 years, and it's council asked that we rotate out our auditors. We issued an RFP, which is attached to the staff report, and we sent it to over 40 firms at the statewide CPA membership. I'm not sure the exact name, has identified as having a partnership interest in doing cities and redevelopment agencies. So of the 40 we sent out, we received quite a few firms that declined to bid, but then we received 3 bids. The lowest bidder was from a sole proprietor, Don Cole and Company of Sacramento. The second was Clendenin and Bird of Modesto, and the third was our current auditor, R.J. Riccardi. And for the purposes of comparison, our current last year contract with Riccardi is $23,600. Of the three bids, the lowest bidder was Don Cole of Sacramento, as I mentioned, and he was sufficiently low, far below the other bidders that raised some concerns about his bid. So I talked to him, and I checked his references, and he is recently a new sole proprietor. He was a member of a large firm when he did the City of Los Banos. He's gone on his own. He's definitely a qualified individual, but I was concerned enough about his ability to meet the hourly quota that's needed to do the city and the redevelopment agency and all the state reports and all the various other things that I recommended that we go to. Well, first of all, I should point out the evaluation criteria of the RFP lists qualifications and specifications of the firm and its experience as a team and as individuals as criteria for selecting them. And I believe that among the bidders, the firm of Clendenin and Bird provides the best combination of expertise, experience, and price for the work being specified that I recommended we go with them. It should be pointed out that they are still less in the current year and the cost that our current auditor is proposing for the next year. And I believe as a consulting contract, we are not required to go on price alone, but other qualifications as well. That's why I made this recommendation. So I'll be glad to make any other findings or answer any questions for you at this time.
In other words, this gentleman, he has no employees. It's him, and so
He did point out that his work is subject to peer review. So there's another audit firm that checks his work. This is standard in the industry. But actually, among his firm, he has himself. Yes.
As far as getting the work done, the other company obviously has bigger staff.
Well, they also have a large practice among cities. I pointed out that they've done Riverbank, Oakdale, Escalon, Houston, Sonora for many years. In fact, only because one of these has rotated out that they actually have opening in their practice for one to rotate in. So we would be taking the place of Oakdale if we were to go with Clendenin and Bird.
Okay.
Don't we keep the same auditors for a number of years, 3 years?
We've had this one, I think, even longer than 3 years, haven't we?
Over 10.
10
And
years,
this proposal is for 1 year with a possible renewal up to 3 additional years.
At the same price or readjusted, renegotiated price?
It has a cost of living inflationary adjustment in it, yes. A small one, about, I forget the percentage, but yeah. They have bid the price they've given us the future year's cost if we choose to use them. It has to be mutually agreeable that each subsequent year. So it's not a 4-year deal, so 1 year with annual renewals.
Still have to come back every year to be approved.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, if I might add, I noticed that we have been using the same auditor year after year, subsequently up to about 7 years when it kind of caught my attention, and I thought it would be good if we were to rotate at some point. I believe previously, last year, we were at a crossroads where it may have been a disadvantage for the city with our finance director and our finance department, the shuffle that was going on there. So we continued on. Now, after 10 consecutive years, I think it's an opportune time for us to have our books really scrutinized and looked at by another auditing firm that instead of us maybe sometimes getting some of the same similar reports, because that's what I started to notice as well.
Further questions, comments? If not, some direction?
I move we approve the proposal to provide audit service from Clendenin, Bird and Company, and authorize the mayor and city attorney to sign agreement for audit services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item C, adopt resolution number 2006, next number, resolution of disability retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, we've done this once before for a former employee, an agreement we reached with him, and we've discovered that the format we used from the manual did not include the most recent language determined by a court decision known as Nolan versus the City of Los Angeles. And so they advised us, CalPERS, that we need to use the new format. And I talked to the former employee and his attorney, and they have not a problem with this. So the only difference being that there's now language in there that says that this employee is not only is he disabled for the purposes of the city of Newman, he's disabled for the purposes of all CalPERS agencies. And they have had instances where supposedly disabled employees have shown up under other employment in other CalPERS agencies, and that has caused problems. So this is the finding, and this is the stipulation, and that's the only difference between this and the one before.
Questions? Not some direction?
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item D, authorize elimination of lieutenant position, addition of a second sergeant position, and consider addition of an additional police officer.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. At our last council meeting in December, I discussed that we were going to be looking at restructuring our police department due to some upcoming vacancies. One of those being a lieutenant's position for retirement, and also an officer that was going to be leaving for other employment with another agency. In looking at our staff and what we currently have, I currently have a sergeant that's been in that position for about 18 months. I don't feel he's ready to take on that role, so I was looking at another alternative. And one of the alternatives I was coming up with is the possibility of 2 sergeants. We had a second sergeant before, which is an administrative position. I don't plan to do that with this if this one is granted. What I'm looking at doing is having both of the sergeants taking on some of the responsibilities, admin responsibilities, and developing their talents and skills in the management of the police department. But they will also be on patrol. So this would only occur, the management duties would only occur during the week. During the weekends, they would be working patrol. And they'd only be in the office for about 4 hours, from about noon to 4. So I'd be bringing them in a little bit early, but we would be gaining more on patrol, more supervision. That would also give us a sergeant on each workday. They work 4 on, 4 off, and so now instead of having one sergeant work 2 days with one group of 4 officers and another group of 4 officers, and 2 days with the other officers, I would have each of them each day of the week would be covered with supervision, foregoing sickness and training and those kind of issues that will pop up from time to time. The reason I'm proposing this is there's going to be a cost savings. A topped-out lieutenant versus a bottom-step sergeant, there's about a $17,000 difference in there. Doesn't mean that we're going to be able to afford another officer without adding more money to that, but I feel with the $17,508 that we'd be looking at, this would be an opportunity for us to be able to take that money and bring the cost down. It's $66,000 for a bottom step officer. I'm looking with if you include the savings that we're looking at, that would bring down the cost of the officer to about $48,500. We're almost halfway through this budget year already, so I wouldn't actually be able to bring that person probably on board till February, probably at the earliest, if you so decide to do additional officer. So that would mean for this current budget, I'd be looking for a difference of about $24,000. And of course, we'd pull the full weight of it in the next budget cycle. So it's a way of making this work for what we'd be looking at for the budget year. The cost savings we'd be looking at would be about $8,754. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Our population, if you look at when I first came on board in '96, we had 10 officers and the population was right at about 5,300. Our population is going to be cresting on about 10,000, and we're currently sitting at 12 officers. So the rate of officer per population size has diminished, and we're looking at that means less coverage. So we're looking at trying to get as much coverage out in the streets as possible. So with that, this is an opportunity to look at this. And I'll answer any kind of questions you may have regarding it.
Questions?
Chief,
Chief, I've got a question. It would be nice to save us some money. We always try to do that, but we also want to have the protection that we believe that we should have out there. The question that I have, are you going to have enough management between you and two sergeants to cover the things management-wise that you're going to need to do?
I'm looking at about, well, I can tell you, having a full-time lieutenant made life a lot easier as far as management. It's just going to mean it's going to put a greater load on myself. But I think in the long run, what I'm looking at is succession planning down the road. You know, I haven't got 20 years left in my career as well with in law enforcement. So I'm looking at developing two individuals that would be able to take over the department in my absence or upon my retirement. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at trying to develop these individuals. Right now, currently, my sergeant is taking on some of those duties as we speak. But with two of them, I would be able to divide out that workload. So to answer your question, it's going to put more burden on myself, yes.
This is, in fairness, this is essentially what we were doing before.
That's correct.
So this isn't anything that's
It's not
new
brand
or
new. I
anything.
think
This
he
is
had
something we did before. I mean, because I remember even our senior sergeant in the past, from time to time, would work evening shifts. So this is primarily going to be going back to what we were doing before. The only only concern that I have, obviously, you know, we want as much police protection as possible. But I'm looking at this this financial from ending 31 October, and it shows that we're negative 70, almost 76,000 in the general fund for the activity here for the year. And quite frankly, I've just, you know, in the many years that I've been on the council here, this is probably the most add-ons that I've ever seen come on after the fact. You know, it seems like there's just no other way to put it. I've just never seen this many add-ons after the fact. There have been such big items, and you're looking at the 24,000 for this half a year, and then it's going to be the entire, you know, yeah, we'll save the 17, so it'll be another 49 to 50,000 next year. You know, we're not even sure what our budget situation is going to be like. That's my only concern. That's a big item. And, you know, I know what you're saying as far as the sergeant positions. That's fine. I know, you know, trying to get as many people trained as possible to move into those positions when they become available, but, you know, I guess that would be my only concern.
Further comment? Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'll just comment in terms of the administrative duties and the chief taking that on wholeheartedly with the retirement of the lieutenant's position. I see that wherewithal within your duties as chief, particularly during the daytime hours. I like the structure of the two sergeants for a particular reason of, I think what you were sharing was somewhat in a team concept. In other words, you have enough officers for the sergeants to be able to split between officers in patrol, where they will have a much more of a team type of concept and overall supervision. The consideration for the additional cost, I made this comment in previous council session that I saw where we were looking at figures of 1,500 here, 2,000 there, 25, the add-ons, where conceivably, you know, we come in with a fixed budget and then we're kind of adding on as we go throughout the year. And I'm wondering really how we're going to juggle those numbers. You just cited a number, Charles, out of our general fund of, we've spent so far 78,000.
Budget shows negative 75 for the year, negative almost 70.
So I'm kind of wondering where those numbers are going to actually sit. And it kind of goes with the agenda item that came before us previously with the audit, because that kind of gives us a telltale of where our numbers actually are. So that would be my only concern, you know, with the recent activities of crimes that occurred in our city that we're well aware of, the tragedies that happened. We definitely want to see those officers per 1,000 people lifted. I don't know if we can really say that concretely right now to add. I would say move forward with your restructuring plan as you have it, with the 2 sergeants positions, also with the backfill for the officer you've lost, and let us get a better grip on our finances, because I would really hate to fill a position, and we've spoken about this, filling a position and then telling someone that we no longer can afford to have you here, we're going to have to lay you off. So at this point, I would agree with Marquez and say I would hold off on trying to hire that additional officer at this additional cost of $24,000.
Well, what position, Mike, does that put us in, the city, as far as having police officers on duty, if we go with that scenario?
Well, it would be our current staffing that we currently have now, because this would be an additional to that. But
Yeah, I know, but we've grown considerably in the...
well, what it does is if you look at the population, that's mainly how this is gauged by. We have diminished. We were about almost 2 when I came on, 2 officers per 1,000 when I first came on board. Now we're teetering on about 1.3. So, and as we get larger, that number will diminish as well. So it just means that it's going to put more workload on our officers, is what it amounts to.
Yeah, but what I'm concerned about, those officers out there, are they protected? Are they going to be short officers, and there's going to be backup for them when they need it, and that sort of thing? I mean, I don't want to find officers.
I can't say positively that each officer is going to have backup. We also rely like mutual aid with Gustine Patterson in the sheriff's department as well. But there's a time problem with that as well. When incidents occur, they're instantaneous, and by the time you get backup, if they're not working on our streets, there's a time delay for them to get here. So, and most of the time those incidents they're called off from coming to Newman because of the incident's already over with. It's been resolved. So that is a concern.
Mike, any further comments? I guess I see Tim and Charles' point. I mean, I hate to fund something and then next fiscal year something drops out and we're have to lay somebody off. That would be terrible. So I would have to agree with them on the scenario of adding the 2nd sergeant, and hopefully as a few months goes by, we have a better handle on what the budget's going to be like for next year. That would be my take also. Do we need a...
Would there be any objection into resubmitting this during the next budget cycle?
No, actually, that would be my suggestion.
You bet.
And look at your staffing needs. Go through it, and what you're talking about is response time. And you gave a scenario, or you actually gave an actual occurrence. I think it was our last meeting when you were talking about the call at the school, and the patrol officer at that time was actually away out of town on a booking, if I recall correctly.
That's
and you had your detective that was in town that actually went to respond. So sometimes it's a mixing and matching, where even if we have the staffing here, they may be on other assignments where there may not be 2 physical officers. But I can assure you, if the situation necessitates it, where an officer needs help, officers will be here and they will respond in a quick-like fashion from our neighboring city of Patterson and Gustine. And those situations have happened. But to get up our per capita, that's going to take some real hard looking and crunching of the numbers. And hopefully maybe with our next fiscal budget, we can look at adding to those positions to even bumping it up above what we're looking at now, speaking optimistically.
I like optimistic.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Would you like to amend this? Do we need to vote on that? Tom? Or?
Well, if you take no action, nothing would change. I think you've given direction
Okay.
to bring it back, so unless you want
Well,
some
I
other
do have,
motion.
Or do we need...
There'd be concern with the elimination of the lieutenant's position and the addition of the 2nd sergeant.
Well, I would.
You want to amend that then,
Here's
Tim?
the thing. On the paperwork here, it says to authorize the elimination of the lieutenant position and addition of 2nd sergeant position. I make a motion for that. It says also consider the addition. At this time, we're going to hold off on that. So the first part of it is to authorize the elimination of the lieutenant position, addition of a 2nd sergeant position. I make a motion for that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item E, designate a council representative for the Qualification Review Commission of the Volunteer Firefighters Length of Service Award System.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, the City Council is elected to participate in the Volunteer Firefighters Length of Service Award System, which sets standards for the current firefighters to meet in every year on a yearly basis for the funding of a stipend that goes to the CalPERS to pay them a monetary award when they retire. And the state law for this requires a commission that is made up of at least the fire chief, a member chosen by the volunteers, and a representative from the governing body. I believe that the volunteers have chosen their member, and of course we have the chief, and now this body has to designate a member to be on this commission to establish these standards, to meet at least annually, to go over the records of the fire department to find out who meets these standards, and to provide a list of those who are going to receive this funding. So that's what this request is all about.
So we need one council representative. I nominate Mike.
I'd like to volunteer for that.
That's easy. Good.
I concede to concurring.
Don't need formal action on it, right? Okay, thank you. Item F, approve funding to allow the mayor to represent the city in a delegation to Washington, D.C.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to give the details, but if you'd like to speak on this.
I've been invited by Chairman of the Board of Supervisors Jeff Grover to accompany the delegation from the county, especially to, obviously there's a lot of county issues involved, but also to step up the pace on the funding for the Orstema Flood Control Project. I know we've had our first death attributed to the creek coming up just this last week, and it's an unfortunate incident. And you know, the county has come through and contributed or identified the funding for the next couple of years, which is another 900-some thousand to keep this rolling. So this is very important. So with your approval, I will be going with the delegation from March 14th to the 17th.
John, do you have appointments set up back there already?
Yes, they're working on them right now. In fact, there's a meeting tomorrow, our first meeting with the delegation in Modesto that I will be attending, and we'll get start the ball rolling, and they'll be letting us know. I think once we're there, we break up in groups, cover certain people, and I'll know more after tomorrow. I'm going to take my flood pictures, you know, brochures, facts, figures, and
I just think I'd comment. I think it's an opportunity. I know that there was a delegation that went last year out of Stan Cog and a couple of the supervisors. Our neighbors down the road there in Gustine had a successful contingent and went back to Washington, D.C. for funding purposes. And one of the things about that is, you know, you go in, as the mayor just mentioned, with the pictures and about your area specific. You get together with your representative, and there's a greater pool, because there's so many people there always volleying for funding. But if you can come there specifically from your district, the 18th district, with our congressional representative who's really has fought for this area for us to get some additional funding, particularly when it comes to the dam issue, I think it's a worthwhile venture, and I'm pleased to see that we have had some invitation from our city with the mayor's representation. So.
Go get them, John.
I just have one question. I'm in favor of the trip. I'm confused on the cost of the trip.
Well, I put down the remaining budget, and there is actually the remaining budget of the council
Would cover it.
would cover it, but that would take almost all of it. That's why I'm asking for a full appropriation of the amount. And we actually have gotten tighter numbers, and I think it's going to be probably a couple $100 less than this.
we're going on red eyes over and back, JetBlue, no frills.
Here's the thing, and it just kind of, you know, we just turned down a proposal a few minutes ago with the police department. I think the more appropriate thing to do, since there's 1,768 still in the budget, I would say that we hold ourselves to the same standard. Let's go ahead and, I mean, obviously this flood control project has been ongoing. It's obviously very important to our community. I would say let's take the 1,600 out of the 1,768, and if there are later things that we all need to go to, if there are things, then at that point you know, there's not going to be anything anytime soon, and it's kind of the same standard we're holding ourselves to, that we'll see what the budget looks like for the rest of us, but obviously this is a worthwhile enough project to send the mayor to out of what we have remaining in a budgeted, what we have budgeted already. So I would rather than us add an additional 1,600, let's just go ahead and take the 1,600 out of what's already budgeted.
That'll work.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that's what we were actually doing.
No,
There was
this
an
what we're
appropriation.
asking for an additional
No, that's not.
appropriation.
Yeah, just go ahead and use the rest of the money, just fund it. I agree.
Thank you for the loan, guys.
Loan?
You better get that down.
We want $1,600 worth of results.
I'll bring back one of those big checks.
Okay, I'll do that in motion form. Make a motion on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item G, request to invite members of standing committees to the annual employee appreciation dinner.
The annual employee appreciation dinner is in January, and it's going to be January 27th this year. In the past, I've been told that the members of the standing commissions, that is Planning Commission, Parks and Rec, Architectural Review, have not been included in this dinner. However, there have been some people who have served on those committees that have not, well, there's been a desire to recognize them at this event and have them invited guests. So that's why we're asking if you think it's a good idea and start this tradition off by inviting these commission members and their guests to this event every year. I don't believe that any additional funding is necessary. Mel has graciously agreed to the catering. I think we can keep it within budget.
Just throw a few more beans in the pot, Mel. Sounds like a good idea to me.
I think it's a good idea.
We need a motion on that.
Well, I know for certain, I had thought of recognition for Mr. Jeff Ennison and Mr. Ed Ford, our two retiring or resigning commissioners that have been long time serving the city. So yeah, I think it's a real good opportune time. We don't. Is this a motion item?
Either way, does everybody concur?
I just concur.
Okay,
Good
sounds
idea.
good. Your idea is good, Tim. We'll get some sort of a recognition on years, the Rec Commission Board. Good idea. Item 11, items from the city manager and staff.
I don't have anything. My staff, I think, of course they have something.
Michael?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Just a reminder that at next Tuesday at 6 p.m. we will be holding the General Plan Steering Committee meeting here in these council chambers. Again, we're just proceeding forward with the policy review and refinement. We're also looking at, we produced a working draft for a land use map that would guide the future land development within the community. We'll be looking at the results of that. That map was presented at our last meeting. And now that we've kind of worked with it, we're going to bring some numbers back to the steering committee in terms of acreages and what that would equate to in the size of our community or anticipated size of our community. There will also be some issues that we want to bring before them in terms of master plan development and what we would like to see in those developments and the company documents that go with it and what kind of analysis we would want in there. We want their concurrence and also to make sure that we haven't left anything out. So I think it'll be a very productive meeting, and I would like to invite the public to attend again. These are all public meetings, and there will be opportunities for you to review all the work at a later date, though. With that, we continue to work on Sherman Ranch Park out there. I think if you've driven down Hills Ferry Road recently, you've seen that they've made a lot of progress. You also got to see how that facility functions as well, as it was inundated and came up pretty high in the water. Basically, when the pipes fill up, then it backs into the basin, and it's supposed to all drain out within 24 hours, which it did successfully in our big storm. So I think we got a good clue on what type of facility we're getting out there in terms of a dual-use basin. And then I think we're starting to see the results of good planning out there, and the equipment that's going up, the shelters that are going up, the basketball court is all laid out so far. They still have to put up the rim. They got a fence around that, so I think it's going to be a very nice addition to our community. One more item, but I forgot to write it down. Oh, the Planning Commissioners Workshop. Thank you, Judy. Every year, the Stanislaus County Planning Directors and a city within the county hold a Planning Commissioners Workshop. That workshop is attended by planning commissioners and planning consultants from Merced, Stanislaus, San Joaquin, Tuolumne, and Mariposa counties. Generally, we've gotten onwards of 100 to 125 people coming to the community. Well, this year, I have volunteered the city of Newman to host that function. We will be hosting it at the West Side Theater on February 4th. The mayor has offered to greet all the participants in there. There will be a fee, and all the costs will be totally recovered. This will not cost the city any money. But we will be getting 120, 125 delegates from 5 counties to come to our community and spend some time in our downtown and welcome them. So we'll have a theater presentation, and then we have 3 speakers coming in from the Bay Area that will be doing presentations, and they're all planning commission related, historical resources, environmental documents, and agricultural and open space preservation. And those are 3 of the hot topics that are kind of going on in the county right now, as well as in the planning world in Central Valley. So again, that would be on February 4th. It'll start at 9:15 in the morning. If any of you city council members wish, let us know. We'll make sure that we have an identification badge for you to attend on there. And if you'd like to speak, let me know. We can break out some time for that as well. So with that, I have no more to say. Any questions?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Ernie?
I've met with Chuy Lopez, the manager from Ace Hardware, and he handed me a proposal that was received by the owner, Mr. Schimper, from All Seasons Landscaping from Escalon. And the work quoted here is remove existing tree in front of Ace Hardware, saw cut and remove the concrete to the south of the existing planter for the new tree, extend water and electrical from existing planter to new planter, plant the new 48-inch box tree in the new planter tree, and then concrete over the old planter area, and also put in the bricks that's going to be disturbed in there. And the total cost was $4,900. But Mr. Chimper wants these people to do the work for him because they have done work for him, and he's very satisfied with their performance. So what they're asking for the city to do is for us to remove the tree trunk, and just saw cut the new area where the new tree is going to be installed. So if there aren't any objections from the council, I would like to schedule the work for possibly the coming week if we can get caught up.
That sounds reasonable to me.
And then the second informational item I had also is I've been talking with Quality Landscaping. They're the ones who are doing the work for Mrs. Serpa. They've installed the irrigation system for the new trees that they were going to plant for her. And he's bought the trees, he has them ready to plant, but he's just waiting for the people to do their final grading so that he'll just know what kind of slope he has to deal with. Any questions you may have?
Thank you, Ernie.
Ernie,
Yes.
on that surface piece, they're going to put that retaining wall in first, I presume, before they plant those trees?
Yes, he's going to wait and make sure that all their work is done, and he's working closely with Mrs. Serpa and keeping us informed. So.
Thank you, Ernie. Chief?
Well, a few things going on in the police department. Obviously, recruitment's one of the things that we've been very high on. But you know that we have a conditional offer out to one individual at this point. It was on our last list, and we're looking at if he passes all of the psychological, polygraph, and medical exam, we're looking at having him on board hopefully by February 1st. We're also having an eligibility list with an oral board coming up on this Friday. We're anticipating a possible another officer leaving our department, and this would take care of that position if it does come available. Nice to have something already on the books and ready to go forward with if need be. We're also looking at, thank you very much for the promotional exam for the second sergeant. I'm hoping to get something done by the end of this month or middle of next month. So I will come back and introduce you to our new sergeant at that point. We have some assignments that were left open. One is our range master, Detective Hale, who held that assignment going to Merced County. Brett Short has been chosen to fill that assignment for us. Right now he's our sharpshooter. He's got the master. He's the best shot on the department, and I think he's going to do a very good job in that. We also filled our third. We're allocated 3 field training officers, or FTOs. We only had 2. With this anticipated kind of growth with the department as far as new individuals coming on, there's a need to keep those positions filled, and Jason Gosling has been taking that position. We're also looking at our detectives position, but that will not be filled until probably about March or April. I want to make sure our patrol staff is solid, and the duties of the detective as far as follow-up will go to each individual officer who's on patrol. So they'll take on additional assignments. But we will fill that down the road after we get everybody through the FTO program, and everybody's handling their own shifts at that point. So we're not going to short patrol. Lastly, what we're doing is after about I think 4 years of talking to you folks about our upgrade to our software at the police department, it's finally going to occur. We have everything in place, and the training is going to occur coming up the 17th and 18th, so it'll be coming up next week. So we're making that changeover as well. So it's been about 4 years trying to get all the hardware and everything in place and getting them all solid on that change as well. So it looks good on the books, and it seems like when I played with the program, it looks very easy to operate. But we'll see when the training occurs and how much comments I get back from the officers. Either they like it or they don't. So
is this a report writing software?
It's a report. It's actually our total management software. It will develop all the state and federal reports that have to go out, along with managing all our reports. Also helps on evidence collection and our evidence management and personnel management, vehicle management. There's a few things in there as well. It's by Arms in Cars. They're out of Florida. We've been with this group for, I believe it was 95? About 95, when we first started automating our system. It's the only system that we've gone with. The bad thing with it, if you go to another vendor, then you lose all your data because we weren't able to convert it. We're going up to a platform now that's a business standard, so we'll be able to look at other vendors if we choose to. And our goal is to not only have it where officers will have access to it at the station, but also we're wanting to get that footprint where we can actually move it back out and get the information out into the cars. We already have laptops in the cars. They're not able to access the database that's in at the station, but with this here, we're now going to be able to look for what they call a patch to be able to make that move. So we're going to get stable on that, and we'll start looking at that for the next budget. Thank you.
Chief, I have a question. We had some members participating in a sobriety checkpoint in Modesto.
Yes, we did. We're part of a countywide grant program called Avoid the 12. And we had officers go on the mid-December and then the last weekend in December, the 30th and 31st.
And the value to that to the city?
To the city? Well, it's a countywide grant. It's a countywide effort. One of it was done. One of those efforts was done in Modesto. The other one was done in the county area in Salida. I'm looking as we keep participating in this that we will benefit from that program. It's not a cost because we're actually getting reimbursed from the government to be participating in that. But eventually, I believe that we will also be getting one of those checkpoints here in our community as well. So it also helps our officers in training as well because they're the volume of having those checkpoints. So when we have one here in Newman, we're not having to start out from scratch. We'll have some people who've already had that experience and how to set it up and get it going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other staff? Mel, we're grateful for your presence tonight. Do you have anything? No? Oh.
I'll take it for you, Mel. Good evening. I just wanted to let you know basketball season starts this Saturday with 23 teams, a little over 200 kids this year. Pretty excited about that. And I've been working with Dorothy Benjamin with the Department of Water Resources for planning this upcoming year's aquatic camps. And we may have 2 this year. And if we have 2, we're going to separate it by ages, have the younger children in one and the older children in another session. We think that way we had from 7 to 15 last year all at one time, and I think we could make it more age appropriate for each group that way. Okay?
200 kids for basketball.
Wow.
200 kids.
That's great.
And we have 8 teams in the adult league, which starts Sunday. The women, we only had 1 applicant, so we're going to revise it, try to come back and make teams. I don't think a lot of women have enough team friends to make a team, so we're going to do the teams kind of how we do the youth teams, divide them up randomly. And that will start later in the season.
Thank you. I think that's it for staff. Items from city council members. Mike?
I have nothing to speak. Thank you.
Bob?
I have a concern. We had this fiasco with the Coca-Cola when they came into our town. And I think what we strongly need are guidelines for future people that want to come into our town and do any type of filming. I don't know if we ended up having to pay anything out of our pocket, but I know the council spent a lot of time, and I know that your staff and other people were involved. I just would not like to see this repeated because we do need those guidelines because it could occur in the future, and we need to have those guidelines in place. That's all I have.
I believe we talked about was it Grass Valley and Petaluma had some ordinances, getting some language from them and put it together.
Yeah, it just...
Do we have any reports from the finance department?
On...
Just anything, any staff report or anything?
I mean, from...
He
the same
had a cause to go home this evening, and I excused him,
Also.
so he's not here.
What else was it? Oh, on that deal, we need to, if we come up with some ordinance, we need to put in there like some sort of a non-refundable deposit, if somebody wants to come to town and talk to us about it like that, so, staff time is worth something. But that's a good idea, Bob. Charles?
No, it was just, I seen all the other staff come up except finance. I was just wondering what happened.
Anything?
No,
Go ahead.
No.
Tim?
I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
And I don't have anything either. With that, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you very much.